Persistence. That's all I said on this. Persistence. Enough said. That's all that matters. Let's see. I'm just going to go gallery view. Boom. There we go. Well, everybody, if I'm correct, I think Mr. Mark Loeffler and I are live on Facebook. I'd love to hear. Let's see. If you're watching, let me know that you're here so that we can at least get an idea if some of this works or not. Well, I am Mandy Brenham coming to you live with technical issues on Facebook. My husband's having a little bit of a coronary in the back there because stuff like this just doesn't happen to him. Another episode of The Full-Time Investor with a good friend, mentor, fellow investor. Yay! Sheila's on so we can tell there's people that are watching. Mark Loeffler, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So where do we even start with your investing history? Who is Mark Loeffler? Tell us a little bit about where you started and what you have accomplished in your time over the last little bit.
Sure. I mean, I started out like most people buying bungalows, putting basement apartments in Newmarket, in the patch up there, and did a couple of those, bought some in Toronto, all long-term hold stuff, buy, rent, or refinance before anybody called it that. And then I did a whole bunch of stuff in Cornwall, Ontario.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. That was just cash flow. And then I got into rent-to-owns.
Wrote a book?
Wrote a book about that. Yeah, if you can go get that on Amazon, Investing in Rent-to-Own Properties, Complete Canadian Guide. So I owned a company doing that. Sold that company, kept doing it, got my real estate license. Was doing flips with Ian Szabo. We wrote a book there too.
Yep.
For Canadian real estate investors.
Yep. I thought I would have it close by, but I don't.
There you go. I don't have it with me either. So
Flipschool.ca. No, that's what it was called. That was Ian's, right?
His is Renos to Riches.
Right.
Him and I together are fix and flip.
Gotcha.
So I wrote that. I did a whole bunch of real estate investing in the meantime. Got into bigger stuff. Now I buy apartment buildings. I just do buy, rent, or refinance on apartment buildings.
You sound so relaxed about all of this, but like, what is the timelines that you started with some basement conversions in Newmarket and Coldwater? What year was that?
Where's Coldwater?
Cornwall.
Cornwall, sorry. Coldwater.
I think I did.
Timeline. So I guess started about 15 years ago.
15 years ago. So you are doing what majority of investors are doing right now, but you have exponentially grown, like massively. So you're brushing over, what seems like a lot, but you mastered a lot of things. Like you master something and then move on to something else. You master that and move on to something else. So, where do you get your persistence?
I don't think I master it and then move on. I think I work at something really hard, learn it really well, and then it just takes me a lot less time to do it. Like to buy an apartment building now takes, 3-4 hours worth of effort, and then not very much time a month to run them. So it leaves me available to do other things. And then I just go out and learn those types of skills. I would actually tell you I'm a slow learner.
So then what are some of your tips? So you're learning a new skill, you're learning basement conversions, or you're learning apartment buildings, or you're learning to become an agent. You just have like a due diligence. You just give yourself permission to be like an asshole and ask a ton of questions. Yeah,
I mean, that's the biggest thing. I find somebody who's done it and I go talk to them about it. When I started doing the things in Newmarket, there was a guy, Bob DiMatteo, Robert DiMatteo, and he'd done a crap ton up there. So I just said, hey, what do you do here? What do you do here? And you know what? Generally, people are very happy to help. So at least people who have abundant mindsets, and the other people I just don't need to talk to. It's fine. If they don't want to help me, I'm fine that they don't want to help me.
Why did you change things? You go from the single families, in small areas like Cornwall. Why did you become an agent?
Okay, so I was doing all that type of stuff. I was still joint venturing back then. So I became an agent because I was doing rent-to-own deals, and basically I was making maybe $3,000-$4,000 per rent-to-own deal, and agents were making $7,000 to $8,000, and they were doing a heck of a lot less work than I was. So I figured, why not just, I don't need to do any more work. I'm basically doing their work anyways. So why not just go ahead and double what I make and become an agent? And it kind of snowballed from there, and a lot of investors asked me to help them and that type of thing, and other people too. And I grew a pretty big business out of that. So
yeah. And then you stepped away from that for a little bit.
Yeah, well, I still, like, I don't, so about 3 years ago I retired. And I stayed retired for about 2 years. And
ran an Ironman, did an Ironman.
Done a bunch of half Ironmans. Did a couple really cool races, Wilderness Traverse, and a couple other adventure races like that too. Larry said he's going to do one with me, but then he found out exactly what it was.
You know what? I'll give you a total secret on my husband. You don't tell him what's involved. You just say, honey, just show up. And he goes, oh, okay. And then he gets there and he goes, what are we doing?
Yeah, except I don't want, he's too heavy for me to carry out of the bush.
Just give him the compass.
Yeah, I think he'd be too heavy for me to carry out of the bush. So.
He would be. But you know what? So you and I resonated with you. I mean, I'd heard about this, elusive Loeffler, and I think we kind of crossed paths. But, you did a presentation at Gary's thing, and it was all about your little buckets and cash flow. And what I loved was that you almost busted the illusion that as you have this large portfolio, wouldn't you think that you should just have lots of money? And you resonated to be able to say, like, I don't have the cash that necessarily goes along with this size of portfolio. So, what is a shift that you've had along the way that has allowed you to maneuver to be able to have your mindset around the hold part, but yet the food on your table cash today part?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it back then and it's like, well, I have this big real estate portfolio. And like, let's be honest, I keep refinancing it. So I'm basically taking the cash flow out to allow it to keep growing. And at some point it's like, well, okay, either I got to stop growing or I got to figure out another way to make cash flow because I keep stealing cash flow from the future.
So right there, so you keep your properties, and I know we've kind of laughed about it a little bit, but you keep your properties at 80% loan to value or close enough there too?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, like I've refinanced most of my buildings 70-75% because that's commercial financing. And most times I need the portfolio to support the cash flow because it's a negative cash flow on that property once it's based on the bank's numbers. In reality, it's probably around a 65% loan to value of what I could actually sell it for anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but you keep them refinanced.
It's just.
Yeah. But then because you also just said, and this is almost where like the title of my book's going to be called Cash Flow, the Illusion. You're refinancing these properties, and you're saying right there that I'm refinancing out the cash flow. Well, a lot of people are like, what do you mean, Mandy? Why would you do that? We want the property to cash flow. And you're like, because I have $40 or $80 or $100,000 here in my hand, but that is compromising the cash flow on that property. How do you share that mindset with some people?
Well, I mean, I just look at it as dead money, right? Like the cash flow I'm going to make on that $100,000 is going to equate to about a 3%, 4% return. So if I can go ahead, pull that $100,000 out and go make, if I'm going to reinvest it in real estate, I'm going to make what, 50, 60, 80, 100% a year.
Yep.
I can definitely go and invest it somewhere else and make a better cash return than
or without it bleeding out your other properties. Do you leave a large reserve fund, or do you just kind of have like a portfolio hold reserve kind of thing?
So we have a portfolio hold reserve. We do. Plus, the fact that we're always renovating units in our building, we're getting significantly more rents. So we're always increasing our cash flows. And, you know, we do have a sizable enough portfolio in there that it really doesn't, that one financing or two financings doesn't make a difference to the portfolio.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing that I take from you is you're very relaxed about these things where, you know, so it's the size of your portfolio, it's the size of the buildings that you're buying. But, you know, when some people are like, oh my God, I need to be able to refinance this in 6 months. And when can I take out the money? And, you know, can I do all this? You have a very relaxed mindset. So is that just a shift from single families to large multis? Is it just a shift in wealth?
Well, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I tell everybody that, like, if you want to, like, the quickest way to make money in real estate is like the duplexes or 3 and 4 units, because again, you can refinance them within the year. My buildings, I don't even touch. Like, I take 2-year financing on everything, just at a minimum. And there's some, like, I got a little 9 unit that I bought 3, maybe 4 years ago, and I've never had a tenant leave. So I go there and I go, sure, I can get more money from it, like a little bit, but it's not really worth it until I can turn over some units.
Right.
It's just what happens, right? So, I mean, I just build a big enough portfolio that people are always leaving, and I don't really worry about it. Like, I don't look at it as one building anymore. I look at it as the collective. So
then how does somebody who's growing from that get to that mindset, or what's a bridge that we can have to be able to say, yeah, we're still over here going one property at a time, but how can we, you know, step back and look at the way that you're looking at your portfolio?
I mean, I would say that a lot of it comes down to who you're partnering with too, and you know, where the money is coming from. I mean, I have a great partner on my buildings. I mean, I don't put any of my own money in. He puts in 100% of the money, and he doesn't want to make cash flow on it either. Like, he wants to show it like a negative, which we're doing because obviously we're renovating and doing all that type of stuff. And it's more just about growing that portfolio to a decent size. And used to be before that I joint venture with, you know, people, and we do 1 or 2 deals, and then, you know, they'd be out of money, but yet then they're like showing up at the property because, you know, they're worried about the money. And I'm like, guys, like, that's not how this works. Either you want to invest with me and I do everything, or you just, hey, listen, I'm a real estate agent. I can just sell you properties. I'm happy to do that. So,
right.
You know what, that's what it comes down to, I think, is find the right partners too, right? Like the partners who are busy and living life and, you know, understand value and understand that, like, yeah, I mean, sure, Mark gets 50% of the profit, yet there has to be a profit before Mark makes any money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then how did you start off with joint ventures? What are some of the things, you know, the people that you were originally looking for to be able to realize that you are, you know, now transitioning to, you know, people who were absolutely passive?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, even then, like, my first joint venture partner, actually, we still own property together in Cornwall. So if anybody wants to buy a duplex in Cornwall, give me a call, because actually we do want to sell that one.
Okay.
We owned like maybe 6 or 7 properties together, and like, to be honest with you, he was great. And like, if they were all like Steve, it would have been great. Yet they're not all like Steve. So when you're looking for partners, don't take on people who are investing their last $50,000, or they're only $50,000 with you, or they're only $100,000. Like, if this is not a huge portion of their wealth portfolio, then I would just tell you to run the other way, because they're just going to call you every time about little things. And that's what's going to get you to be like, oh man, it's 6 months, we haven't refinanced. What the heck? Right.
I need that money. I need that money. Where did this $3.95 go? And I was like, that's the bank that's the bank account fee. Like, there's nothing to say.
That's right. So those people get fired pretty quickly.
Okay, so keep going, because I kind of stopped you because I do love with that mindset. So there you were building these properties, and you were having this idea of needing to transition to some cash flow.
So, I mean, that's what rent to own was, right? So that's why I started doing rent to own, was I needed the cash flow. I was always that. So my mindset always went to is like, how do I earn money from this to live rather and build up an investment portfolio at the same time. So I did rent to owns, I did flips. Rent to owns are great, except they're just long-term flips. And it's just, there's so much work on the front end that, yeah, sure, you make good money you make okay money, I should say, right? And you make good cash flow. Yet again, you have to do it you got to keep turning it. Whereas I can buy an apartment building now, and when units come up, we renovate them, and when something happens, we fix it. Yet I can hold it for 50 years. I don't need to sell anything. Now, if somebody comes to me with a ridiculous offer, I might look at it. Yet I don't need to do anything.
Yeah. So so it's not cash flow that you went to the large buildings. It was scalability to go from single families to large multis.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? Well, two things is, number one is financing.
Financing.
So when you own a lot of residential properties, the bank doesn't like you, right? When you own a lot of residential commercial properties like apartment buildings, the bank loves you. The bank wants to give you more and more money. And the more you own, the better it is.
And
that shift in mindset. And then the second thing is, if you got a couple $1 million to deploy, then to do it on a duplex or like a single family home conversion, you have to do a heck of a lot of those.
Do you advise people though to be able to say, get your feet wet, do a couple couple single family ones, and then like earn your right to do the larger multis?
Well, it depends, right? Like if they're coming in with a couple $1 million, then I'm going to be like, well, if it's not a significant portion of your net worth, and you like, typically those people are a little bit more advanced anyways, if they got a couple $1 million, then I would say, listen, I would start off with apartment buildings, and we'll just work our way through it, and I'll just help you out.
Yeah.
Happy to do it. But yeah, if you're starting out and you got $100,000 or something,
yeah,
then you should definitely start with the smaller ones, and you can have your money back within a year.
So leverage out the small residential financing, recycle that capital until you've like maxed out of your residential financing, then start to figure out a way to be able to ante up.
Yeah, I tell everybody, I think 2 to 4 units is you maximize your return. You maximize your return because you can do it quicker. Plus, I think that it's easier, right? You can get a single family home vacant, do all the work, and get it turned over, right? Where I can't just walk into a 20 unit building and say, hey, everybody out.
Yeah. Hey, you, everybody out. Yeah, I know there's been some There's been some conversations in some groups that I'm part of, and they're like, oh my God, I found this great property. I just need it vacant. And you're just like, people, like, this is a human need, a basic human need of housing. People aren't just gonna leave. So it's one of those things to be able to say, how do you make the numbers work with the reality of tenants aren't always going to leave? Do you pay tenants to leave sometimes?
So, here's the reality. And Kyle Poulos, right? So this was Kyle's question to me when they started investing in apartment buildings. He's like, well, what if the tenants don't leave? And I said, listen, based on what you're buying, where you're buying, 25% of the tenants will leave within the first year or two. And I go, that's really all we need based on the rent rolls that we're buying and, how things look, to be able to turn that over and basically pull out all of our money, or at least not 75% of it.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, if I can pull out 75% of my money, I'm pretty happy. And then, over the next 2 years, another 25% go, I'm at 50%, right? Like, I'm fine with it. I don't need everybody to leave. We do offer incentives for people to leave, but it's only $3,000, and we'll pay for their movers.
Yeah.
And they use our moving company, right? So it's not a big deal. Like I'll help them out. But you know what? At the end of the day, like, there's life circumstances, and people are moving. People are, getting together with somebody else. They need a bigger apartment. They have babies. The job changes. Whatever. People move.
Oh yeah, and the rental, I mean, you're not paying your rent, and you probably have some just regular evictions due to the people that don't pay. You're like, we don't play that game, maybe like the last owner did, but we don't. So, clean out the riffraff.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it's getting harder. I think people are getting smarter and saying, wow, I got a good deal. This is a good apartment. This we haven't had an NFS I think we had maybe one in the last 3 months or something like that. And, they pay it at the end of the day or whatever it is, right? So,
yeah. We were actually finding that it's not the old tenants or the tenants that have been there for a long time that are defaulting. We're raising the rents, we're creating these nice units, and of course they're significant, they're at market rent, so higher prices. They're the ones that are the delinquent ones, not paying, or maybe got into too big of a unit that they weren't able to handle. And those are the ones that we're taking to court, not the ones that have been there for 15 years, because they darn well know, don't screw this up.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: I'm buying nicer and nicer buildings too, right? Over the years, I've gotten away from stick built. I buy concrete construction, terrazzo floors, so they're well built buildings. And people go out and they look and they're like, if I leave here, this is what I got to pay, right? So, and the new people, to be honest with you, we're not, I think that was the one person in the last 3 months was one of the newer buildings. But even then, we do our homework up front.
Yeah.
And, we take the time to process the applications properly to understand that, listen, this person, if they have a high chance of default, then it's probably not going to work out. So
not going to be it. So now you've now bought you're not putting any of your own money into it. So I'm sharing this with the potential joint venture partners that, are looking to come this way, or people who are wanting to do what Mark and I are doing, to just really be able to own it. I remember, I think I was sitting here looking out at the same scenery that I'm looking at, and I called you and I said, hey, I'm looking at this apartment building and my partner wants to do a 65-35 split. And you said, yeah, do it. You'll never do it again, because you'll realize how much work it is to be able to get into it. So it's almost like, listen to what we're saying and do what we say. But, if you have to compromise, what's a way for somebody to be able to potentially compromise to get into their first couple JV buildings or properties that you might have done that you don't do anymore?
Listen, if you got no money, you have no credit, you have all this knowledge around real estate, and somebody comes, if you pitch somebody and they say, listen, I'll do the deal at 90-10, I would say, well, I mean, what else are you doing? Are you investing anything else? So I would say, you know what, fine. I would do that just because I have no other way of building a track record.
Right.
Right. And that's the biggest thing. That's why you can do a 50-50 deal, is because you have a track record.
Yep.
So I would say, listen, if you get a 70-30, 65-35, I mean, there's big investors out there doing big apartment buildings on a 70-30. I mean, they're massive apartments. They structure them differently than I do, with fees and that type of thing. And, I just find that 50-50 for me works. And I don't charge fees. I don't upcharge property management. I don't do any of that stuff. Right. So I'm simple. It's clean for me. And I need that because I don't like complexity. Right.
You said you don't upcharge property management. So there is property management, obviously, that's in there. Yes.
100%. Mark does not manage property.
Yeah. No, that's good. So how are you transitioning now?
How am I transitioning now?
Your buckets.
My buckets. All right. So obviously I'm still buying real estate. I mean, we just closed on 51 units in July. And I do, as you know, because you got Larry into this. Maybe
Larry.
Bring Larry on.
Come here, Larry.
What is he, a dog? Jeez.
I know. He's around the corner. He's not even listening.
So obviously I do options trading. So I sell naked puts and covered calls. And that's affords me cash flow basically. And then because I don't need any of my own money in real estate, whenever I refinance a property, I either put it into my options trading or I put it into investing into small businesses.
So 15 years, you started off with the real estate, buying, selling, you did some various different cities, then you got into the rent to own and some flips. So I'm just like, I love the feel of the timeline and the growth, because I think a lot of people will just say, well, I'd like to do what you do right now, with negating the fact that it's taken, 15 years to be able to grow to this amount. So that's like 15 years, bud, like, congrats.
I know, we're old.
I know. I should train for a Traverse race. That could be on a list, but I'm not going to commit to anything.
Husband-wife teams, I hear they're very successful.
They're either dead or alive, one of the two. Here's my funny story off topic. When Larry and I first got together, we did an obstacle or a scavenger hunt, but it was in the car, and we were like 10 kilometers away from the start line, and we pulled over and we were like, that's it, we're done, can't do this anymore. So anyways, when we got back, we were like, we're still engaged. I think maybe we were just dating, but we were like, well, we're still together. That's the success of this scavenger hunt. But we totally didn't win anything in the scavenger hunt. We're not good communicators. So, it's all.
First year I did the Wilderness Traverse, we had a husband-wife team, and we were pulling into one of the transitions, and they were having a discussion a little ways behind it. And they said, oh, you're supposed to be together. I go, well, they're having marital problems. And they actually weren't. They were discussing, he was having a problem with me, actually. And so I just blamed it on that. And the volunteer said, yep, that's why I volunteer. My husband does this because husband and wife teams don't usually do well at this event.
I know, lost in the bush and a compass. Yeah, I would understand. So what's one of the best Loeffler pieces of advice to be able to say to a new investor starting out, wanting to be able to be a Loeffler in 15 years? What's some of your top tips? Why don't you join the Zoom?
I mean, I'd really just go ahead and I tell this to everybody. Oh, there's Larry.
There's Larry. He's just going to join our Zoom call.
We saw his arm. Yeah, I mean, it's know your market, right? So if you want to invest, if it's investing in real estate, get out there, network with other real estate investors. Start looking at properties. Know the rent's down cold. Like, so if I renovate this property, I walked into this 3-bedroom bungalow. Great, 3-bedroom upstairs. I know I can get, say, what, $2,000 for. Downstairs, stuff's renting for $1,400. Okay, and then I've walked through so many things that I know that this is going to be the rent. I know that this is going to be my expenses. I know this is going to be a renovation cost. So it's talking knowledgeably about that to a joint venture partner. Or, I mean, if you have your own money, hi, Larry. We see you, bud. It's okay. He's not used to this, I guess, being on air. So, yeah, I mean, it's really just getting to know like your market, and maybe you're going out and learning 3 different markets, but and then figuring out which one's the best for you. I would say concentrate on one to start with, and then once you've learned that market, I mean, you can take it. It's just a system and a model that you can take anywhere, right?
I actually have been saying to people that us working partners, we almost have a duty to be able to say, sorry, I don't know, Larry, just put yourself on mute for a second. We have a duty to be able to say that in 2020, there are more people that have cash that need to be able to invest than there are people like us that have the market knowledge and the expertise and the ability, the access to properties and such. And I mean, when you're in the industry, you think everybody's looking for them. But, the percentage of people that are out there doing their jobs, love what they do, professionals, and they're like, hey, I've got an extra $1 million just sitting around. We have a duty to be able to provide opportunities for people to be able to invest in. That's like my 2020 motto, that I will put money to work for people. It's Scout's honor. Yeah, exactly. So as we transitioned, and I heard you and you said you're turning to these stocks and options. It's kind of where our whole 360 circle connected here, and Larry came into the fact. So, you know what, I really recognize that you do a lot and your brain calculates a lot, but those stock things, I thought I would leave up to my other half, and he's really picked up on it. And you guys certainly have quite a community. But you know, Larry, what have been some of your obstacles in transitioning from some real estate into stocks?
Some of my obstacles, I guess, like I did a lot of hands-on at the beginning when I was working with real estate. So it's not really an obstacle, but it's more or less so passive. And so I really, when I did my first trade, and Mark, you helped me, I can't believe how passive it was. Like, it was so nice to see the transition go through and the money come in with
I think
no communication.
I think that the thing is that you just don't have to talk to people. Like, there's no people like negotiating. There's no contractors. There's no tenants. There's no mortgage brokers, right? Where in real estate, like, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes, that's exactly.
Whereas in the stocks and options, really all you're doing is insuring a contract for somebody. So you're basically just becoming an insurance company.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Larry would go, I feel like I've not done anything today. And like, you know, he's listened to me talk to these people and solve problems and put out fires. And, you know, like, my hand is in so many different pieces of properties. And he'd be like, but physically, you know, he's a hammer swinging, he's a, you know, a renovator or a whatever. So that was one of the things that he struggled with was, I don't feel like I'm doing anything. So.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, that's why, like, I was retired for 2 years, and that's why I went back to work is, you know, I kind of not just missed human interaction, but, you know, I was kind of getting bored. Like, golf season had ended. So it's like, you know, like, what am I going to do? Sit in my hot tub all day? I don't know. Like, it's, I don't know, what do people do all day other when golf season's ended? I guess I could go to, like, Phoenix. Yeah. I don't think my wife would like it if I went there and left her with the kids and her home working. So
no, you're definitely a generation ahead of the majority of your friends that have retired. But you know, where do you look for your joint venture partners? Like, where would somebody who's new be able to think that they could connect with people that would be interested in real estate passively?
So I found a lot of them at some of the different clubs that I went to. Guys who were going to some of the investor meetups that, you know, wanted to do it, yet maybe didn't have the time, you know, busy lives, that type of thing. Or, you know, just saw that, hey, if by investing with Mark, I can get to where I want to go quicker. You know, I seem to find a lot of investors on the golf course now. I mean, it's where I spend a lot of time.
40% return on investment. Who's in?
That's horrible.
Good work.
So, I mean, that's where I spend the time, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, like, a lot of the investors I know, like a lot of family or friends type thing, that they do that too. I invested with my family at one of the first properties I did too. You know, it's, you know, who do you know that has a home with equity in it? That's a good place to start. I mean, if they can pay 4% interest only and lend you the money, or, you know, go in the venture with you and you can return their money within a year, sounds like a pretty good deal to me. So.
Do you have, is it easier or harder now that you're an agent? Any benefits over drawbacks of that? On a joint venture attraction side, doesn't make a difference?
Doesn't make a difference. A lot of, like, because I got so picky being with my joint ventures, it basically became I'd meet somebody and they're, yeah, we want to joint venture with you. I'd go through it with them and I'm like, let's be honest. You just want to be an investor, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I can basically show you how to do that and give you my team, and you don't have to include me on it, and I'll just make a commission. How does that sound? And because they were going to be the people that were like showing up and like, oh, this isn't done, this isn't done. Like, oh, I shoveled the walk, and I'm like, we pay somebody to do that, but okay, thank you.
Right.
And they were just annoying me. So
yeah. Yep. Well, I want to respect your time, and I know we had some technical issues, and Larry, I'm sure we'll be able to get them figured out for next week, or complain to Facebook here and say what's going on. But so thank you. And this was Thursday of a Thanksgiving weekend. That's why you had space in your calendar.
That's right. Well, yeah. Now I got to go watch some football games.
That's not a bad thing. You know what, Mark? What if you were to leave somebody with one huge nugget of Loeffler information? What would it be?
I mean, reflecting on a lot of stuff is that I would say, just go take action.
Yep.
And that action could be, let's get out and look at property. Could be making that joint venture presentation. If you don't take action, nothing will ever happen.
Yeah.
Even if you take action on a bad deal, I tell you, if you hold that property for 5 or 10 years, you'll still look like a genius. That's the best thing about real estate.
Take action, look like a genius. That's my takeaway.
That's all you need to do. Just take action.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, everybody, for watching another episode. Even though there's some ups and downs, I do thank you. We'll see you in another week.
Thanks for joining us, Larry.
I'm going to